Hey, what's up, everybody? Fred Minnick here, and today I'm going to review a holy Hazmat. Like, great goodness, Hazmat 1, 45.9 proof, Jack Daniel's single barrel, special release, Tanyard Hill Rye. Okay, so before I review this, and this is a sample bottle I got. You may see that the cap's off of it. The cap blasted off of it, so I could put it, but you can see, like, I didn't even tear the foil there. It just blasted off. And that's a little part of some of the history I'm going to share with you. And if you're just here for the tasting, you should know by now that this channel is not just about my reviews. I like to give history. I like to give little tidbits. I get long-winded at times, so if you put it in the comment section, oh my gosh, I wish you'd hurry up and get to the review. I've got, for you, if you're one of those, thank you for tuning in, but I'll have like a timestamp of when you can get, for me to get just straight to the review. That being said, I will tell you that this is a very curious release for me from Jack Daniel's. One, Brown-Forman was the last holdout of a full proof or barrel strength or basically anything over, like, let's say, like 110 proof. They had a very staunch belief of Brown-Forman well into, like, I want to say 2015, something like that, like very recent. They had a very staunch belief that the full proof, cask strength, barrel proof, whatever you want to call it, was against the drinking responsibly campaign of the spirits industry. They also could not find bottles that would basically be able to hold the cork. So anytime they did something that was higher proof, the corks would just blast off. Like the way for whatever reason, the way that the Woodford Reserve bottles were engineered initially, they could not maintain the cork could not hold with high proof stuff. And this is a really good example. Like I was telling you, like, this sample bottle, this thing just popped off. Like, I just barely touched it when I was going to, like, turn it, and the cap was completely gone, and I didn't even notice. I didn't notice that the cap was no longer threaded within the grooves. It had been pushed out, and it was just basically hanging on like that. And I came in here to touch it, and went bloop, like that. So it popped off like a champagne cork. So anytime you have like all that alcohol in there, it puts a lot of pressure on the closure. And for a long time, Brown-Forman was like, we can't do that. We can't get the closure right. So Brown-Forman was the last to join this kind of like this cask strength movement. And they're probably, if you were to ask me to like choose like a company that would never do Hazmat, that probably would have been the one that I would have chosen because of the old school kind of drinking responsibly thoughts within Brown-Forman. That being said, they had such incredible success with Coy Hill, and even though there was some hesitation from the company to release that series, it was such an overwhelming hit, and it was so good, right? Coy Hill is so fantastic. Now, that's the other thing. One of the other things I want to talk about. Brown-Forman did not really start branding or talking about their unique warehouses at Jack Daniel's until they saw the success of Coy Hill. And I think, as whiskey drinkers, we tend to like often just kind of like dismiss Jack Daniel's, as like being this volume game and everything. But when they opened up that distillery for us to pick barrels from, we're all looking at each other like, why aren't you talking about this? Why are you over here talking about Jack Daniel's safe when you have this incredible airflow at this particular warehouse, this particular area? Why aren't you talking about that? We want to know more about that warehouse. We don't care about this, Jack Daniel's story. Tell me about the warehouse, because that whiskey in Coy Hill or one of these warehouses up on the hill where you got this incredible airflow, why don't you tell us more about that? And I think it took Jack Daniel's a little bit of time to figure out, like, not everything is just about the black label. We got a lot of really good stories to tell about how the whiskey's made and the quality of the whiskey. So that I think things started shifting when they were like not only winning awards, but capturing the hearts of whiskey geeks. And I want to say it was probably around when their first barrel proof series. There was some pushback in the bourbon community, like, oh my gosh, why are you reviewing Jack Daniels? Oh my gosh, Jack Daniels is Tennessee whiskey. It ain't bourbon. And that started that whole debate in a lot of circles. But come to find out, you taste this stuff with anybody, and they're like, yeah, I like that more than I like, say, Stag. I've seen Jack Daniels barrel proof go head to head with Stag and win numerous times. So I think what we have seen in the last few years is that I don't think Brown-Forman is moving away from their focus on the black label. I just think they created a new focus on the foolproof line or on the special releases from Jack Daniels. So that being said, there's one other thing I want to talk about with this release that I found very, very curious. Now, up until a couple years ago, if you bought liquor in the United States of America, it came in like 100 ml, 200 ml, or 50 ml, 375, and 750 and liter. It did not come in 700 ml, which was really for the foreign market. A couple years ago, they started shifting. They passed a law where it was legal for distilleries to bottle in 700 ml. All this stuff is federally discussed and protected, and it's a whole thing. And by the way, in the middle of a government shutdown, they're not able to actually produce new labels at the moment. So there's going to be quite the log jam when the government opens back up for new products. That being said, this product, which by the way is a mash bill of 70% rye, 18% corn, and 12% malted barley. It's gone through the charcoal mellowing process, then it goes into new charred oak barrels. And they went into barrels in 2015. They were basically in the warehouse that they call Tanyard Hill. So that's a little bit about that. They're going in 700 milliliter bottles, and it's being sold throughout the United States for a price of $79.99. And I don't think that's too bad. I don't think that's a bad price at all. You're starting to see a lot of the prices come down, which is kind of fascinating, really. But my point is, with 700 mLs, like these companies are able to get charge the same amount that they would with 750, or maybe even a little more, and get away with it because no one really notices a 50 milliliter difference when you look at the bottle size. But they sure notice when you're talking about thousands of cases. That's a lot more profit than you would have if it was 750. I'm not here or there on like whether or not I like 750 versus 700, but at the end of the day, I'm excited this product's out here. 145.9 proof. It is a single barrel, so I will not have this in my consideration for Top 100. Top 100 does not consider single barrels because they are so unique. You can really job the product that's out there. So I also will say, as a professional taster, when I know that there's a Hazmat in the lineup, I do get nervous that it's going to like bust my palate. Like there is such thing as like whiskey overwhelming your palate if it's such a high proof. So yeah. Anyway, let's get to the tasting, shall we? Thank you all for bearing with me on that little bit of a history and discussion on Jack Daniels and its parent company, Brown-Forman. All right. Woo. Speaking of warehouses, this smells like, by the way, look at that color. Isn't that color something right there? Believe me when I tell you, it's as dark as it looks. That is not a trick being played by my camera. That is dark. Whew. And it smells like a warehouse. I don't have any other description for the nose for you other than it absolutely smells like you are walking into a whiskey warehouse. The wood, the whiskey soaking deeper inside the barrel, kind of moving in and out of those like lines that they have created over summers and winters of a whiskey getting pushed in and out of the barrel. It's just, it's an aroma that there's no other way to describe it. You just kind of have to be there. And I'm betting if you're watching me on this channel, Sip Whiskey, you've been into a bourbon warehouse. In fact, put in the comments what's your favorite all-time warehouse that you have stepped into. Tell me what it smelled like. Man. It's a rock star of a nose. And this is a rye. I'm not smelling this like it's a rye. I'm not getting any cinnamon here. I'm not getting any herbal notes. I'm not getting any spice, which are typical notes of what I get in rye. Not getting any of that. I'm just getting Bourbon Barrel Warehouse. Or Rick House or Rack House. Which I ain't mad at. I'm not mad at that. Well, for as good as it smelled and as comforting as it was as like a Bourbon Barrel Warehouse and no rye there, we definitely know it's a rye now, okay? So you put this on the palate and all of the notes of Bourbon Barrel Warehouse grandeur are gone, and it's straight rye whiskey. It gets right on the palate, and it is just going 100 miles an hour there. It's going 100 miles an hour because it's 145.9 proof. So you're like, it's right on there. It's like, woo, let's party. And big, giant note of rye, like rye bread right away. Mid-palate, stuck there, still there. Very powerful. It's enormous how big this note is. And I would have to say that it better be enormous at 145 proof, right? I mean, because if it tastes like it's watered down, then we got a problem. But you don't got to worry about that. You don't got to worry about that one bit. This is a rye supernova happening on my palate, and it ain't going away. So I'm going to have to taste this again to kind of figure out, is there anything else here, or am I just being lazy and not being able to get past that big, giant rye note? Also, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of this bottle. You want it? Put it in the comments section if you'd like it. Not saying I can give it to you, but if you'd like it, you know, there are rules against such things. Like, try to go to Goodwill and give away a bottle of bourbon. See how they look at you. Rules. Okay. Cherry cordial. Bananas Foster, which is typical of Jack Daniels because of their yeast. Cinnamon. But y'all, I just can't get past the big rye note. And I'm trying to say this so you realize I'm not just being lazy with my tasting notes here. But it is magnificent how big and heavy, like this rye muffin, rye bread, chewing on rye in a meadow, right? You're just out there going into a rye patch, and you know what? I want to see what Holden Caulfield is all about. I'm just gonna grab this and just start chewing on it, okay? And yeah, it's what it's like. It's powerful, but it's not grainy. Right? It's not grainy and it's not bad. Here's something else I really like about it. It's unique in that usually you get, when it comes to rye, you typically get You either go down a path, and this is I've tasted ryes that date back to the 1800s, and they all ryes almost go down this path of being like herbally, like so they go down this path of being super herbally, or they're super spicy, right? And sometimes they're both. This one really is neither. This one is kind of like uniquely tastes like rye bread itself. And then after that, you've got some like cherry notes here. You got a cinnamon note there, that is spice, but it's not like dominating. The dominating note is the base grain, and it's actually pretty rare. Usually I would even pick up on the higher proof ryes, I would typically pick up some kind of like black licorice, which would typically follow down that herbal kind of rabbit hole note. I want to taste it again. Maybe there's something there I'm missing. Hey, this is one of those, I can't taste this a whole lot because it could just straight slap me in the face, and as Dave Pickerel would say, have my mama slap me in the face. I miss that man. Coming up on the, he died in 2018, so the 7-year anniversary when Dave Pickerel passed away. I did a dedication to him recently in my whiskey club, Club Marzipan. He meant a lot to me. Cheers to you, Dave. Okay. I'm holding strong with this. It finishes long. One note about the alcohol. If you're coming here, you're probably not a newbie when it comes to tasting higher proof stuff. But if you happen to be someone who doesn't regularly taste high proof spirits, I don't want you to be afraid of them because they're like, oh my gosh, that's gonna be too hot. It's gonna burn my tongue off. This is not coming in like it's 145 proof. All right. So what I mean by that is it's not alcohol-y. I mean, it's heavy, it's strong, you feel that, but the notes, the power of the alcohol does not express itself in alcohol per se. So it's not like putting Everclear on your tongue. It expresses itself from the flavors it extracted from the barrel and from the flavors that remain from the grain and the yeast. That's what's prevailing on the flavor profile. It's not the alcohol itself. It's the notes of the items that help put together this product. So you're looking at grains. So the 70% rye, the corn that they had in there, the barley. You're looking at the yeast that they would have used to ferment it. In the case of Jack Daniel's, you're looking at the charcoal mellowing process, probably extracting some higher alcohol notes prior to it going into the barrel. And the barrel is where we would get a lot of those more refined notes and also be filtering out a lot of the notes that you do not want. And it's simply fantastic. But the final caveat I'll give you on this tasting is that it is a single barrel, okay? So it's a single barrel, which means what I'm tasting is probably not going to be what you're tasting. But these media samples tend to be pretty good. They tend to be pretty good general ideas of what could be out there on the market. But Brown-Forman does this a lot. One of their primary bourbons that they do this with is King of Kentucky. That's a single barrel series, right? And, the one sample that I will get will be like that, and I give a review on it and say I like it or don't like it, which there have been years I haven't liked it. And, that is still a good representation of the lot that came out that year, even though it'll be different than the other 5 single barrels that are on the market that you could possibly get. So, anyway, that's the last little caveat on this, but overall, a fantastic pour. It's a single barrel. Take it for what it's worth. But if you are in the market for a high proof rye for one pour, one night, boy, this is gonna be hard to beat. It's gonna be hard to beat. And this would be a low mid 90s score for me if I were scoring it. It is fantastic. And I cannot get over the power of the rye grain in this and how approachable and nice that flavor is. And this is one I don't get surprised often, but this one really surprised me. So kudos to Brown-Forman for releasing a very good Jack Daniel's Tanyard Hill Rye special release at 145.9 proof. So, hey, thank you all for tuning in. How about this? This is my third video this week. I know I've been away a lot on this channel, but as you know, I wrote a new book called Bottom Shelf. I don't know the whole, I do know the title. Bottom Shelf, How a Forgotten Brand of Bourbon Saved One Man's Life. And I'm that man. So I hope you go check that out. I'll have a link in the description for you if you want to find out how to get a signed copy. Also, now I started a new podcast with Pro Football Hall of Famer Jared Allen, where we just interviewed a conspiracy theorist, someone who claims was a survivor of the Montauk Project. Put your, you might need a drink when you go watch that one, but go over to Fourth and Neat on YouTube and check it out. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. Be safe out there, and remember, vodka sucks. Cheers.